Hey everybody, my name's John.
I'm Bob. He's Bi.
They're Butch.
And together we are the Butch and the Bi.
And you like watching things.
And we like watching things.
And you like enjoying things.
And we like enjoying things.
Sometimes. And this week, we had a good time watching Robin Wright get railed in multiple ways.
We watched some real wacky animation of the future.
We watched some real wacky animation of the right now.
And we watched a really heart-wrenching scene in a body scanner video thing.
Yeah, we watched 2013's The Congress. I'm going to pick up my notes now because I have notes and I'm a professional like that. Hey, Bob.
Hey.
Would you like to hear about the movie that we watched together?
Yes, I would love to hear all of the sordid details.
I love that for you. Okay, so first things first. I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to go silent for a second. Playing a fictionalized version of herself, Robin Wright stars in the 2013 French-Israeli sci-fi flick loosely based on Stanislaw Lem's The Futurological Congress. Extremely relevant to today's climate around film and television, the film sees mother of two Wright offered one final contract to have herself scanned so that the actor or the character, Robin Wright, can continue to star in films made by Miramount at the expense of her ability to perform. 20 years pass and contract negotiations require her attendance at the Futurological Congress. The Congress is animated in an acid trip-soaked tribute to the animation styles of the 20s and 30s. The film is directed and written by Ari Folman, who did Waltz with Bashir and Where is Anne Frank. The cinematography is completed by Mikael Englert, who did Valley of Flowers and Infinite Storm. It was edited by Niley Feller. I looked this up right before.
Mm-hmm.
It was edited by Neely Feller, who worked with Folman on Waltz with Bashir and Where is Anne Frank. And the music is by Max Richter, who did the score for Waltz with Bashir, as well as Ad Astra and Mary, Queen of Scots. Fun facts all around. The cast features Robin Wright as herself, Paul Giamatti as her son Aaron's ENT, Dr. Barker, John Hamm as the voice of Dylan Trueliner, Danny Houston as studio executive Jeff Green, Harvey Keitel as Robin's manager Al, a young Cody Smith McPhee as her son Aaron Wright, and Sammy Gale as Sarah Wright, her rebel daughter. The narrative's central idea that actors would be paid once to be scanned and utilized in perpetuity was a terrifyingly, mostly accurate glimpse into a future only a decade away from the film's release in 2013. Bob.
Mm-hmm.
How you doing?
How am I doing? Yeah.
We watched a movie.
We did.
I saw this movie in 2013 when it came out at the Hollywood Theater, when it was operated by the correct people. And it was a trip then. It's a trip now in many different ways. But I guess non-spoilers, what was your initial, movie ended, credits started rolling thought?
First thought, that was a lot. Second thought, I'm going to be thinking about this for a while. And I think my third thought was just Robin Wright.
Robin Wright, yeah. It's weird because when I watched it, it was kind of like I was not developed as an individual. I was still nerdy, just cares about Marvel and pop vinyls, John. Now I'm nerdy, cares about pop vinyls and Marvel, John, but we'll also complain about them. God, it's eerie watching it now. So this is our first episode. We are moving forward until the strike for both SAG-AFTRA and for the WAG. The WGA, not the WAG. For WAG-AFTRA and SAG-AFTRA. But this is the first in a line of episodes that we're just going to be focusing on films that were not produced by any AMPTP film studios. So things like Universal, Sony, anything like that. But the film's narrative, I wanted to show you this movie for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was literally the news articles about how part of the contract for SAG-AFTRA was background actors being paid a day rate, a single day rate, to be scanned and used in perpetuity with no consent of any form on their end as a background character. And it is shockingly, eerily what this movie is about. We spend the first, like, I'm going to say, like, what, 20, 30 minutes kind of in 2013 with Robin and her family. And, like, there's this weird clinical nature to everything. Even their, like, hair hanger house that they live in, like, everything just feels a little too, I don't know, clinical. I don't know if that was intentional or not. But it leads to this striking difference by the end of the film. But I think the bigger, more interesting part of the film is when Robin, 20 years in the future, after signing this contract and being scanned, and what you made the joke at the beginning, but it was a really beautiful scene.
Yeah, no, she has to show some emotions, and her agent of so very long has the perfect story to tell to give her the full breadth of laughter to emptiness as the scanner, who was, as she meets him and she's like, oh, you were a cinematographer, amazing cinematographer. He's like, well, at least I still get to work with actors. And it's just, there are so many artists, and it's constantly like, when you learn about movies and behind the scene, you're like, there are truly so many artists at every level involved, and execs don't care about any of them. Your bosses don't care about you.
Yeah, it is, God, it is so on the nose what's happening right now and what's been happening for the last, like, 2 or so years, that, like, AI has become really more prominent in the mainstream conversation about art and in film. I know I was getting in, like, weird arguments with people online constantly about this, and it's like, it was a matter of time before it came up. It's just kind of shocking to the level of, like, expectation the studios were already planning on, like, having this ability. And in the same way here, we've got Danny Houston playing just this, like, man, he's playing a studio exec so well, as kind of the antagonist of the film. He's really playing into Robin's weaknesses, because Robin Wright, I think her most well-known role outside of maybe House of Cards, as for modern audiences, is the Princess Bride. She's Princess Buttercup in that, and it's like the Goonies. It's like it's one of those movies.
It's one of the great classics that transcends many, like, growing up a fairly sheltered homeschooled kids with friends who are even more sheltered. Princess Bride was a thing that everyone knew, and regularly we're seeing how much you would quote it in a day. It really transcended a lot of cultural things as far as, like, mainstream, which I was never exposed to as a child.
Yeah.
I'm having fun telling my coworkers about my childhood at a new job, because I get to be like, yeah, I didn't have TV or video games as a child, but I had The Princess Bride.
Fair. I had Clue and Small Soldiers, so I was doomed from the start. Murder mysteries and toys, sign me up. But yeah, it's frustratingly just, like, it's so simple how it's approached. I was telling you after we finished watching the film, but the director was initially planning on using an X-ray machine of some sort, or, probably an X-ray machine. An MRI would suck in all the camera equipment. But, like, there was that expectation of, like, oh, that's how we're going to have to approach portraying this technology. And he was talking to a colleague of his who was like, no, come down, like, in LA, come to the studio. We've got this set up. And it's literally, like, it's a setup we see nowadays for a lot of things, and we see even more simplified versions of it on people's phones of, hundreds of high quality cameras capturing every angle at a, multiple photos per second.
Lights flashing from different directions to get different
Yeah.
lighting effects.
There was a I can't remember the name. I think it's called like Doppel or something, but Tested did a video on it recently of they have that kind of setup to make 3D prints of people as like little mementos. And so it's like, yeah, this technology's been here the whole time. It's just now gotten to the point where it's becoming so seamless. And this movie just saw that coming and portrayed it in a way that's like, oh man, that's so on the nose. Because at the Congress, which is 20 years after, she has to go back for contract negotiations, and she meets this guard who's like, you're going in and you're not coming out unless you see me, kind of thing. And so she takes this ampule of, what did they, I can't remember what they called it. Do you remember what they called it?
I don't remember.
It was just some chemical.
Yeah.
But it basically started to make her hallucinate. And as she's traveling to the Congress, which takes place at this massive, like, floating island hotel amusement park. Yeah. Everything starts transitioning into a, like, Lisa Frank splashed, kind of like the old Betty Boop cartoons.
Max Fleischer?
Yeah, Max Fleischer is the animator, but I was specifically thinking of there's the Betty Boop cartoon where there's the clown dancing. It's very popular.
It's the Snow White one where she's frozen in the casket. He's doing his little dance to.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like things in the background.
Yeah, that is very such a good silly little sidebar, but I love that recording from that song, and there's nowhere else you can find it. Like, he came to the studio and did like the dancing and the recording of it, and every other version of St. James Infirmary, I'm just like, I don't like this as much as the one that Cab Calloway did specifically for this animated one.
That's what happened with me in Fun Home, the local production at the theater over in the north side. I fell in love with the people doing that version, and then when I listened to the actual recording that's on Spotify, it's just not the same. But yeah, she gets there, and it is a trip. Waltz of Bashir is an anti-war film that is animated in almost a more grounded version of this style, where it's almost got like a 3D effect to how everything's going. And the director really seems to find the medium a really great way to portray really abstract ideas, which makes sense because the budget for this thing was wild. Fun fact about the budget for this, I guess, at the time, with European laws when it comes to filmmaking, wherever you earn the financing for a film is where you have to do that production work with that money. So they were animating this film across 9 different countries, and they had to keep track of that workflow. The director was very like, God, no, never again. And it looks like the animation has some moments where it's a bit odd, but then it has all of these moments where the oddness is so impressive. It's also he is a descendant of Holocaust survivors, and so a lot of the film's messaging and imagery is tied to being anti-Semitism. It is literally the design of the kind of the main auditorium of the Congress is based off of the auditorium that Madoff Schmittler had designed, and that was intended to be this big amphitheater. And so I'm sure you clock those ties.
I was sort of floating.
Yeah.
But you saying that, I'm like, yeah, the long skinny banners. I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah.
When all the like the corporate suits being very kind of soldier like. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of that messaging there mixed with the messaging of like where the industry is going, um was going at this point. It's so
Mm-hmm.
weird to be talking about it because like 10 years ago, it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah, we get a parallel when we see all these people in the flesh, and he's telling her this whole structure is about to change.
The
The
paradigm
antagonist,
of the
yes,
studio, yeah.
everything is about to change because we are going to be scanning everyone, and if you don't get in now, you will you will never get in again. Like, and then when she comes back for negotiations, you get the same thing. The whole structure is shifting. Now people are going to be able to eat you, inhale you, become you, and imagine whatever.
Yeah. Basically the your imagination becomes so much more vivid. And the another interesting component of this that hits on a modern thing is virtual reality.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically with the character of Dylan played by John Hamm. There's this moment, obviously we're well past spoilers at this point, but
Also, if in a way it's hard to like, so much of this is so visual that trying to spoil anything in an audio medium
sure,
is
yeah.
also, but yeah.
There's this moment with the character of Dylan, played by John Hamm, where when Robin decides that she wants to kind of uncover the truth, the other truth, and return back to the real world or leave the Congress, he asks her to not look at him once she's out of it, to not um to remember him only that way, the way he appears as Dylan, as the animated character. And there's a level of that with something like VR chat that's really intensely prevalent now that wasn't then. VR was not anywhere near where it is in 2013, let alone being such a customizable social platform. And that was another really fascinating thing to see, because a lot of it is you have people that have maybe custom avatars like Dylan, but then you have a lot of people that are taking their own ampules and potions to look like famous actors like Marilyn Monroe. It's wild how it hit the nail on the head twice with two different pieces of futurology. So yeah, it's just yeah. But she returns back to the real world to find her son. 20 more years have passed, which is wild. And the big reveal is that the illusion of the Congress, this highfalutin class lifestyle that everyone is living there, they're living underground, covered in dirt. Their clothes are tattered and ripped. They're having a trip. And those that aren't having a trip are just keeping society functioning. And if that's not also similar to what 2020 was like, it's just wild. I think that's the thing about this movie. There Robin has a really great performance. The other characters and actors don't have a lot of screen time. They're all there kind of to act as foils for Robin. The character we get the most about is Dylan. And even then we don't get everything because he's got this aura of mystery, because again, he's a character. He's not a person, so to speak. And so when it comes to talking about this movie, it's the main reason I wanted to have it on the show was to kind of talk about how much it just paralleled what's been happening in the last couple of years, and especially right now.
It's an impressive level of predicting the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're at this big congress, and then there are the rebels, and she gets like poisoning from the stuff, is what, like,
yeah, it's like hallucinogenic poisoning, is what they call it.
So she can't, and so they cryogenically freeze her.
Oh, right. Which was that a hallucination or
Yeah,
not?
that
Because everything in it, the definition we seem to get is that because when she's back in the real world, Paul Giamatti's character returns and kind of explains to her that like everything you experienced once you decided to come back here and basically get sober, all of that stuff stopped existing the way it existed. And so it's that hard thing of like how much of any was Dylan even a person that she
Mhm.
was interacting with, or was it just a delusion in her head, just like everything else?
Yeah, I want to know more about her son, because the way they were talking about how he interacted with the world was really interesting.
Yeah, he's got some degenerative hearing loss
And
going on.
and some vision
Oh,
loss.
and vision. Okay.
Yeah.
They focused a lot. They
Yeah.
did another thing they accurately predicted, Bob, was everybody doing the wax paper ear burning thing. That was trippy to see after seeing it on TikTok all last year.
I think that is just a thing that has come back, because I remember it coming up and like my sister doing it one time. But yeah, I think that was prevalent at that time as well.
We kind of don't. The only answer we get is that basically her son tried waiting for her, and then he could no longer wait. And 6 months before she comes back, he went in. And so she decides to go in, and it's really fascinating. I guess we can move into favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Because one of my favorite parts of this movie is when she goes into the second trip. She goes in seemingly almost cognitively recreating the first portion of the movie. So it's animated in that style, but it's grounded, and she's using that as a way to, you want to hope that it's her finding her son actually, but more likely it's just she set up the circumstances in which her brain created her son again. We only ever see the daughter as a rebel whenever they're breaking into the hotel and taking over, and it's just very sad.
It's incredibly sad and also really beautiful in the way life is. Favorites, I love the whole bit with him flying the kite at the beginning and him explaining it to her, of like, it was, these colors are about to touch. I also found it really interesting when she went into Humber. She's like, I can't imagine Aaron in a world like this.
Yeah.
And just like, that was like the really interesting relationship throughout the movie, because she signs away all her acting. She spends that 20 years taking care of her son. And
which we don't see any of.
Yeah.
That's the intent. And I have to imagine, between budget and scheduling, I think that's part of why we didn't get that much of it. It's very... The kids were such an important part of the beginning of the movie, and they're technically her reason for doing what she did. But then their appearances are non-vocal, and there's no connection, really. Like, her daughter ignores her completely. And then, yeah, everything we see of Aaron is potentially a hallucination. Yeah, it's very odd. And then the initial trip, we had talked about it earlier, but that initial, just her, once she takes the ampule and she's driving into the studio, if you will, I love it. I think that's what stuck out to me most of why I remembered this movie so much, is just how unique that was at the time. It's kind of fascinating now because we're kind of spoiled with animation, but at the time, something like that just wasn't as common. And I was also very fortunate to be at a place where I was like seeing movies like this. I never would have seen that if it wasn't for the fact I was like working that night or something. So
yeah, there's one other element that I find fun, is that when they're doing negotiations, she says no sci-fi. While they're in a sci-fi movie.
While they're in a sci-fi movie, and then the one movie that we see that was created using this character version of her is RRR.
Rebel Robot Robin.
Yeah, 3 or something. And she's she's got the from the end of Rocky Horror Picture Show, Magenta and who's the butler? I can't remember, but it's their alien get up from the very end of that movie.
Yeah. And then the other, she's like, no porn. And he's like, your age porn. And then later there is a little animated sex scene.
Yeah. It reminded me of the jarringness, because I forgot about it completely. My initial thing that like popped in my head was the Bride of Chucky sex scene where it's just their like silhouette of the dolls.
Yeah, no, this is a very interesting movie that I would love to hear people who know so much more and have thought more deeply talk about it.
Yeah. Well, it's
I feel like there's obviously so much there for analysis, and I don't have the brain power, but I know it's there and it's very cool.
yeah. I think that is the good part, is just how much it is a buffet of analytical conversation topics to choose from. Yeah, and it's really, 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 really insane how relevant it is now. Okay, Bob, do you have any recommendations? Or do the cats have any recommendations now that they've joined us on the couch?
I have a shoulder tail.
Don't we all? It's called an elbow, Bob.
So darn cute. Cats like to be directly behind you being extremely cute. Yes, that is their favorite place to be cute, where you can't see them. God.
You recommend God if people enjoyed this movie? That's wild.
No, don't God.
No, don't.
I don't know that I have anything, because it is so different than anything I've watched.
Okay. I do have a couple.
Okay.
And these are like, only one of these is like much trippier, which is Akira from 1988. That movie is a trip and a half, but it is also like a really gritty exploration of a different part of society, which is kind of the government and private, like state police, and like poverty and just exploitation of poor people. So if you enjoyed, again, this is one of those movies where it's like, it's an experience in the way that's not like a spectacle. It's an experience in the way of like, boy, do I have a lot to think about. Akira was one of those movies that when I watched it, I was like, this wasn't what I expected was an action story, because one of the big shots from that is like a big motorcycle swing.
The motorcycle drift that has been emulated throughout anime.
Yeah,
because
you would
it's
think
so cool.
It's so cool, but the movie itself it's got elements of that, but man, it's got a lot more to say. The Matrix, 1999. For obvious reasons, it's, will you take the red pill or will you take the blue pill? Will you wake up and face reality, or will you continue persisting in the illusion, whether or not it's good for you? And then the other one, it might be a little controversial, but it's in the same vein, is Ready Player One. For all its quirks, it does the same thing of introducing those kind of topics of analysis of like, when is it too much that you're in this place, or when is it too much that the way you're portraying yourself is different from who you are presenting as, kind of thing. So
yeah, I figured you'd bring that up, because when I was thinking about things, I was like, oh, that also is it very much connected in a way.
Yeah, fantastical worlds, people being exactly what they want to be. It's, yeah, very much kind of hits all those notes, and like the world changing while you're living in that. I think I experienced a little bit of that, sort of, and it's fascinating to be out of that. But yeah. Okay, Bob. Do you want to know what's at stake?
Yeah, what's at stake? What's on the line?
I'm going to turn you into a cartoon if you don't get more than 3 correct. Or if you get a failing grade.
Yes, I need to get at least 3 out of 5.
Yes, and not fun cartoon like Spinell. Sad cartoon like Eric Cartman. South Park.
Okay, you just made it so much worse. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a sad Robin Wright, but no, you're gonna make me Eric Cartman. If
Eric
I fail.
Cartman cosplaying as Robin Wright in this movie. What a strip. Okay. Question number 1. What is seemingly the phrase used to describe when an actor plays themselves on screen in the way that Robin Wright does here? A. Stan Leeing, B. Adam Westing, C. John Malkoviching, or D. Nicolas Caging?
John Malkoviching?
No.
No, not
Adam Westing. Yeah, that's the thing I could find on TV tropes.
interesting.
Yeah. Question number 2. The film references several movies that Robin Wright has actually been in, including Princess Bride, Forrest Gump, and this other movie. A. Toys, B. State of Play, C. State of Grace, or D. The Pledge?
State of Grace.
Damn, I was really hoping I'd trip you up with State of Play. I was surprised.
Nope, I for some reason State of Grace really stuck in my brain.
Amazing. Let's see if this answer stays in your brain. Question number 3.
Mm-hmm.
A character from before Robin enters the Congress reappears almost immediately after she decides to face the truth. Which character is it? A. Al, her manager, B. Travis, the cinematographer, C. the gate guard, or D. Dr. Baker? Dr. Baker.
It is Barker.
It is Barker. There's a typo in my trivia section.
Amazing. I mean, I wish I had been looking for it because I want it to be the guard because that's what he told her. But is it the guard? No.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool.
It is the guard. He was the bartender. He was the animated bartender. I thought it looked like Michael Moore initially was what I thought it was going on, but it was just an animated version of the gate guard. So he was the last thing she saw heading out of that. So
cool. After it ended, I was like, wait a minute, I should have been looking for that.
Yeah.
I should have been looking for that.
So I had to reopen the movie and scan, and I kept, because the trivia on IMDb, where I get some of these, spoiler alert, the trivia says after she comes out of it. I'm sitting there and I'm like scrubbing through that entire section. At no point does he show up. It's after she accepts the truth, after she takes the pill, is when he shows up. Question number 4, and I kind of fucked myself here.
Oh boy.
Yeah, question number 4. SAG actors were offered how much pay to scan their likeness for indefinite use? A, 1 day's pay, B, 1 month's pay, C, $2, or D, 1 year's pay?
1 day's pay.
Yeah. Isn't that swell? Anyways, question number 5. This icon was initially approached to star in the film. A, Robin Wright, the actual Robin Wright. B, Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep throat.
Meryl Streep throat. Ew. C, Kate Blanchett, or D, Fran Drescher, who is the president of SAG-AFTRA. Isn't that fun?
Kate Blanchett.
That's correct.
Hey!
You don't get turned into a shitty cartoon.
Thank God.
Don't thank God, thank me. I'm the one doing it to you. There's a wall of various Looney Tunes style torture devices behind the camera. Which, by the way, as long as things go right, this episode's going to come out with a video version again. We are getting back into that. The idea being every episode, but we'll see. We'll see how we're doing. But yeah, this week's episode is brought to you by the letter V for video. You can go watch it on our YouTube channel. Bob, where can the good people of the internet find you?
They can find me at asmallfrogart.com. Art by frog for frogs. Others welcome.
Oh. Others like
human.
Oh, okay.
And cat.
No, that's not what I was going for. You can find us at www.thebutchandtheby.com. That is AND, not ampersand, because the internet doesn't like ampersands. And you can go there and, consider going to YouTube and subscribing to us. That would be a swell thing. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hey, let us know what you thought about the movie The Congress if you watched it, or let us know that you do support these striking writers and actors, because they deserve it, because we literally wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't for the work that those people and other creatives behind and on screen do.
Yeah. It's also, it's just wild to think about, like, oh yeah, we're going to scan you for background. We're like, okay, let's just hit you at the knees to getting anywhere in this industry. It is so, like, that's a step you go through, is being there's background actors, and then they get from that to something else, and it's just cutting out a whole.
Yeah, it's one thing if it's like the shots of like thousands and thousands of people, but even then, those are always usually filmed with a group of dozens to hundreds of extras. And like you said, it's the networking opportunity. That's where they are mingling with other performers, with producers, with casting directors, with, you know, writers. I mean, it's a common occurrence is for people to be granted temporary union cards because they get upgraded to some sort of speaking role because they were the person that fit the bill in that moment. So yeah,
it's just taking out the humanity, which is the thing
it's really boring to do.
It's very boring.
Out of all we could talk about how awful it is ethically. Industry will continue moving forward in a way that doesn't support human beings. But when you look at the arts, at the end of the day, it's downright boring to know that every element that went into creating something was either stolen by other people who created something else or created in a manufactured mechanical way that is just boring. I think a lot of people look at like modern Marvel projects, which I find enjoyment in those. But I'm also not disillusioned to the fact that, like, yeah, they kind of have been in the state of making things to continue making them. You know, what was needed to make them any part enjoyable? The human people behind those things. They deserve to be able to afford to live. They deserve healthcare, and we're very, 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 very passionate about this, which is why we've basically dedicated a whole episode to that. So yeah, we'll be checking out a bunch of indie films that we both have seen and not seen. Someone let me know. I'm shooting for films that were produced by non-AMPTP studios. Some of the films on there have like co-distribution with some of the places. I just don't know how that part works, but
we will do our best to stay abreast of the current requests from the striking parties and adjust if they ask for anything different.
Which right now have not been a consumer boycott of anything. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Butch.